there was not a real need for that sort of aircraft because it's a huge, double-decker aircraft, massive plane, right? So it was very expensive to run. And when you have an aircraft with 4 engines, it's going to cost you a lot more. So, for example, when you're flying from Singapore, Changi, or KLIA to London, just an example, right? Because this was told to me by pilots who fly it. And I have an ex-college mate who was an A380 pilot, right? And each time when you fly an A380 from either Singapore or Malaysia, you're talking about loading up jet fuel worth about over 200,000 US.
Wow.
Just for that sector. From Singapore or KL to London.
London, yeah.
Right? So
before we begin the podcast, have you gotten your free ebook? It's called the Build a Six-Figure Portfolio Guidebook. Now, inside it, we share with you the tips and tricks to bring your stock investing skills to the next level. The best part, it's only 10 pages long and it's totally free. Whether you're on Spotify or YouTube, the link to download is in the description, or you can go to www.firl.co/FREE or www.firl.co/free.
So, hello and good day, everyone. Welcome back to the FIRL Podcast. Today, we have a very, very special guest, someone that I have been stalking for a very long time online, and I finally had the pleasure of meeting him. I hope my co-host MJ will not be too bored, because it's in a way my hobby and my passion.
Don't set up this podcast like that already, John.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward,
Yeah, yes.
Really looking forward.
Yeah, great. So today my guest is Mr. Shukor Yusof. For those of you who don't know him, he runs a blog by the name of Endau Analytics. I'm dying to ask him why he picked that name. He's also a contributing writer to the S&P. I want to find out more about his history, and I wouldn't spoil the surprise, so I'll let him introduce himself. So without further ado, Mr. Shukor, welcome to our show.
thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. Happy to speak to you this afternoon.
Yeah, great. So, Shukor, I just want to tease out a little bit of your background. And I understand you're a Singaporean but residing in Johor. Is that correct?
No, I'm actually a Malaysian.
Oh, Malaysian, but okay.
I'm a Malaysian. I'm a Johorian. I was born in JB.
I see.
But I moved to Singapore as a student a long time ago.
I see.
So I've never actually lived in Malaysia until 8 years ago.
Oh my goodness! So all this while Singapore.
I grew up. No, I grew up for a bit when I was young, and then secondary school I was in, and onwards. And after that, I never lived in Malaysia until I came back in 2013.
What made you come back to Malaysia?
Actually? Oh, I'll come back to that. Actually, it was my son, but more of that later. But I spent my youth in Singapore.
Okay.
Because my parents wanted me to have an English education.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
And for that, I'm very grateful and very thankful to that.
Great.
I mean, that pretty much shaped the person that I am today, that experience and that years spent being in Singapore in that very tough academic system, where, but it's also a truly meritocratic place to be. And so you either swim or you sink.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I enjoyed myself, and I was interested in studies, but not to the extreme. So it was a good experience to have over there, to see through the secondary school, and then I went to junior college.
JC.
Yeah, JC. Spent 2 years there, and then I had a place in NUS
Okay.
to study geography.
Geography?
Yeah.
Of all things.
Yeah. Somehow it was, I wasn't particularly interested in it, but it turns out to be one of the better subjects that I had for A levels. So,
Okay.
so they said, okay, I wanted to study history or politics, social sciences, liberal arts, and so, but they put me in geography. So I went because I also have a strong interest in maps and looking at contours and all that stuff.
I see.
Yeah,
I see.
but then, I also had a place at some universities in the UK.
Okay.
This was so after A level, I had already applied for some universities in the UK and got accepted to a couple of colleges in London. And then, but then I had this place in the US. So I was, what I'm trying to say is I didn't have the funds to see me to go to the UK at that point. And this is early 90s. 84 actually.
84,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I'm a lot older than you guys. So
MJ, were you born back then? 84?
No, 10 years.
Oh,
10 years later
okay.
now. I was born.
1994, yeah.
no, the 80s were a fabulous time, especially for music. But anyway, so I decided to just accept the place at NUS because at the same time I was also applying for scholarships.
I see.
And in Malaysia. So yeah, I mean, I decided let's try, just accept the course anyway.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know if I was going to make it to go overseas, right?
I see. Yeah.
But I kept trying. I had those places already. Anyway, I started. So I did my matriculation. I did my lectures for the first month or two.
Okay.
And then during that time, I think 6 weeks into the course, I was very fortunate because I had a scholarship from the Johor State government.
Wow. And where do you go?
I went to London. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And what do you major in?
I majored in history.
Oh.
And but again, this was my initial thing that I did when I arrived. So for 2 weeks, I was in Central London, college that it's a very good school that specializes in Oriental and Asian studies and African studies, right?
Okay.
And so I went there and I got very homesick.
Okay.
And I didn't like London somehow. It was the first time I left Singapore or Malaysia, right?
Yeah.
So I've never been anywhere. It was the first time I took a plane actually. and it was a Boeing 747.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so I spent 2 very miserable weeks in London, and then I decided, it wasn't the course. This college was a fabulous place because of the history and the lecturers, but I just didn't like everyday commuting on the underground.
I see, on the tube.
Yeah, it was crazy, and I didn't like.
How about the weather, actually?
The weather was grim also. I arrived in, I think, just before mid-September. And if you've probably been to London or the UK, you know it's always wet and gloomy.
It's always grey.
Yeah, it's always grey.
Yeah.
But that didn't bother me as much. But I didn't like the idea of being in London because it's a city, it's very crowded. It's So so at the end of 2 weeks, I decided I have to leave this place here, and it was difficult because my scholarship was looked after by the Malaysian Students Association.
I see.
Part of the Malaysian Embassy, right? My commission there. So I went to see the counselor who's in charge of all the Malaysian students there. I said to him, I have a problem. And he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, your degree, everything was on paper, documented, and everything. I said, "Look, I'm going to try and find a place outside of London, and if I get, then I can write or call the officials in JB and explained to them.
Mm-mm-mm.
So I found the university in Brighton.
Brighton, yeah.
Yeah. Which is about 50 minutes by train from London. I went down there. It was end of, so classes had already started. That's why I said, look, I have this problem, and I went to see the head of the faculty.
Okay.
And I said, do you have any place? He said, what do you want to do? I said, anything in the within the arts faculty, right?
Okay.
And he said, history is full, geography is full, this and that. And I said, what do you have? And he said, well, we have European studies.
Okay.
So I said, okay, I'll take that. I did, because I was, I don't know if you've been to Brighton, but Brighton is a beautiful place. It's by the coast. It's the southern part of
Brighton, right? It's really nice. Really nice.
At that time, it's got a fairly good football team as well.
Yeah. Football players stay there also, I believe. Some football
but
players.
they have a Premier League club now. It's in the
Yeah.
So and then I said, look, I'm being sponsored by a state government, so I can, if you let me in, I can write to them and say, he said, yeah, okay, if you get a letter from your embassy or the government. So he accepted me. So that's how I did a degree in European studies, which is probably, I don't know, I'm probably one of the few Malaysians. I haven't met any
Malaysians who did. I think for me, from my small sampling, I think you're the only one. But that makes my curiosity even more. It's like European studies to aviation.
Yeah. So it's quite a journey I've had. So I did that for years. I did one of the requirements where you would need to at least have a basic knowledge of a European language.
I see.
I didn't know anything. So he said, if you don't, then we have to put you on a really like a cram course.
Okay. Express course on.
So you see, so you have to choose either French, Italian, German, and English.
Which one did you choose? I'm very curious now.
Italian.
Okay. Why Italian? Why not the French or German or
Well, because part of the course requires students in that program to go for exchange courses in the country at the language of your choice.
I see.
So I thought, well, and in the choice was being a student in Bologna, one of the oldest universities in
Italy.
So I did that, and I found that Italian is not very difficult if you understand the Latin or unlike German. For instance, German is very difficult.
Yes,
they have their own way of writing and pronunciation, but it's not. So I mean, if you understand English, it's not very difficult to understand.
So no guessing who you were supporting, right?
I was I was delirious when
Excellent.
I didn't think it was a good end to it. I always, penalties are not a good way.
Yeah, penalties are never a good.
But I can see you having a hard time supporting because you learned Italian, but at the same time also you were studying in the UK.
Indeed, yeah, and I do have a soft spot for England. In fact, I was the only Asian on that course, on that program. I think there were over 40 students, and we're talking about the mid-80s.
Yeah,
there are very few. Because the Malaysians that I knew at that time in Brighton were mostly engineering or science students.
Yeah.
So there wasn't anybody in arts or diploma.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Shukor, do you mind if you increase your volume just a little bit by probably?
How's
30?
this?
Yeah, sounds better.
Okay.
Better. Yeah, great. So from European studies, Bologna University, what was the pivoting moment that made you switch into aviation analysis? And maybe you can share with us. Yeah.
Well, aviation I didn't start until 25 years ago.
Oh.
So yeah, in 1996. So before that, I was a journalist by training.
Ah.
Yeah. So I came back from the UK to Singapore.
Okay.
Went to JB, but then I went across because all my friends and people I knew were in Singapore, and they said, why don't you find a job there? So I spent about 2 months looking around, and there was an ad at Singapore Press Holdings.
Okay, SPH.
Yeah, and they were looking for fresh journalists. And so I applied, and within weeks they wrote back and they asked me to come for an interview. And for written tests first.
Okay.
So, yeah, for a written English test for about 3 hours. And then they said, okay, you do the test and then go back, and then we'll let you know if we think you qualified to be a journalist, and then to have another interview. Right?
Okay.
So yeah, then they called me up. Okay. So okay, we'll have an interview, and then we had an interview, panel interview. SPH is a very good organization. They have specialists in English, specialists in many areas for discussion.
Yeah.
Right. So they said, yeah. After that, then they said, yeah, okay. Would you like to join us? So I said, yeah, why not? Right. So I like to write. I enjoy telling stories. I enjoy meeting people. Before I came back to Singapore, I was actually interviewed by Reuters in London.
Oh,
yeah.
Why didn't you take that one up?
Because at that time it was very difficult to get a working visa.
I see.
Very, very difficult. So I went to a 2-day interview session in Fleet Street. Fleet Street is where most of the major UK newspapers are based in London. And so I went to the interview to do this session interviews with people at Reuters. It was fun. But they said, you have to apply for work visa yourself.
Oh my God, they wouldn't sponsor you in a way.
No. But they said that if you want it, then we can recommend you. If you wanted to work in Singapore, for example, there's a Reuters bureau in Singapore. Yeah. So and then I thought, well, let's see how it goes. And I said, it's all right. It was a good experience. So I went back, and then I knew I wanted to do something in writing.
I see.
Journalism. So that's how I got into SPH. So I started in SPH as a cadet reporter. Yeah, a little foot soldier in the whole pyramid. It was fun. Yeah. I was 22 when I started.
Yeah. Mr. Shukor, do you mind if you increase your volume just a little bit? Because somehow it just sometimes we can
about 30% if it's possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So from the foot soldier, were you in a way, I think, correct me if the term is wrong. They said you're assigned a beat, right? Usually when a journalist...
That's true. I think good. You know your stuff. Well, journalists are usually, for SPH in the late 80s, I think what they do to new cadet reporters, where they put you as a general reporter, meaning they assign you to the various desks in the newsroom. So at one point you would be working in the general desk, and then you would be working with crime people, covering crime and all those fun stuff, and then entertainment. So if you like covering about music, concerts, and celebrities and so on, then you do that, and sports. So I ended up doing sports after spending a bit of time around the newsroom because the editor, sports editor, and people in sports, I got on very well with them.
I see.
And I also like the idea of not spending a lot of time in the office, because when you're a sports reporter, you go out a lot.
Correct.
Right, and you get a chance to, I love football, so to watch football and then write about it. Right?
Yeah.
So that was fun. So that's what I ended up doing for the next few years.
I see.
at SPH, and then I left in the mid 90s, I think 94. Because
So
I
before
had
you go on,
Yeah.
go on, I just want to know what you were covering those several years for football. Like, was it local football teams?
well,
different-
it was local and international as well.
Ah,
So I initially, of course, I had to cover all the local stuff, right? And you cover even schools, soccer stuff, yeah. Secondary schools, who plays what, it was fun because when you are young, you speak to young people and you are doing talent spotting as well, right? You see, so eventually, some of the boys that I followed and interviewed within 3-4 years, they played for Singapore.
wow.
Yeah, so that's good. And but I also covered Serie A at that time in the early 90s. So they had started a column for Italian football, which had just started being very big in Singapore at that time. And so we had all these tapes and matches that were sent to us. And what I did was to review that. They're all in Italian. Then they thought, okay, since you understand Italian, so you might as well write about it, right? So I part of the job was writing or watching football matches that had come from Italy and then writing about it in the newspaper.
Wow, what a cool job in a way.
It was, yeah. It wasn't just that. I mean, other than that, I covered tennis, so I've met quite a few celebrities. I had lunch with McEnroe.
Okay. During the 90s, right? So
Early
McEnroe,
90s, yeah. McEnroe was there. He came with Agassi.
Agassi, yeah, Andre Agassi.
And
Sampras.
Sampras wasn't there, so it was just an exhibition match.
I see.
And then a year later, Gary Lineker came.
Okay.
And because I knew the people who arranged for his arrival, and he came to Singapore before he left for Japan. He was going to be part of the new J League in Japan.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, so he stopped over and we went out, we had a drive, we went along the Singapore River, we had half a day, we chatted and all that. So and then I wrote about him. Yeah, so that was cool. Who else? But sports, it gave you the opportunity to travel to Bangkok, Jakarta, Philippines, all over Southeast Asia.
I see.
Yeah, so that was fun. When you're in your early 20s, it was fun. Yeah.
What prompted the move to S&P then, in a way, after?
After SPH, I left to do my master's. Actually.
Okay.
So I spent another year in England.
Okay.
This time I went to Leeds University, which is in the north of England.
Okay.
Having spent some time in the south of England, which is a very prosperous part of the country.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see how, there's always, if you speak to an Englishman or somebody from Britain, he or she will explain to you that there is a regional discrepancy, or how should we put it?
Politically correct.
This disparity, right, between the north and the south. Right? People are more prosperous and more conservative in the south. In the north, they are mostly Labour voting people.
Yeah.
And more
working class, right?
Well, more working class, yeah.
The Manchesters and the Liverpools.
Yeah, which is great because the best football in England are in the north, actually. So
exactly.
So I went to Leeds, and I know I watched a few games there, and then after a year I came back to Singapore, and that's when I decided I didn't want to just focus on journalism per se. I wanted to do business journalism because it pays more.
No, hard and fast fact, man.
But the choice was very limited at that time. Right, you only have, not like now, you have so many TV networks and business publications and all that. So at that time, there was a new setup in Singapore called Asia Business News. Asia Business News is the precursor of what you have today called CNBC Asia, right, which you can get on TV. So they had just started in Singapore, and I had some friends who worked there. From the journalism industry.
Okay.
And I said, wow, can you try to pull me in or something? He said, yeah, come and meet my boss. He's an American. from the Wall Street Journal or something. So I went, and it was very. I mean, Americans and British are very different. Americans are very informal.
Yeah.
Right? There's no such thing. Okay, no, you have to write in and all that. No, let's come for a chat. He says, So I came in and then we had a talk, and he says, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about TV, broadcasting." So he said, I said I wanted to try it because it sounded very, very glamorous and interesting and fast moving and all that. He said, "Would you like to be a presenter?" I said, "Yeah, why not?" So I mean, so they put me in front of TV. I had a few tests and all that, and I didn't like that. I was quite nervous, and you have to be quick on your toes when you're in front of a camera and
That's
live
right.
and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I said, no, I think I'll be behind the cameras and now. So I ended up being a TV producer. Yeah. So I got into CNBC, and then, so during that time I covered the Kobe earthquake. I think it was the Nick Leeson affair, and
Oh, Nick Leeson, yeah.
MJ was
Barings.
that, yeah.
Barings,
Barings, right?
Barings, yeah.
Barings, right, yeah.
So that was fun, because at that time, it was the biggest business story in the world.
It was the Enron back then, right?
Yeah. So we tried to stake him out and everywhere, and then we followed the story. It was fun. So after that, I got tired of TV because there's not much writing in TV, right? It's just editing videos and looking at stuff, voiceover and all that. So I thought, I want to go back to something traditional, doing research and writing. And so then I asked Reuters if they had anything. So after that, I went to Reuters as an Asian correspondent for transport.
I see. But based out of Singapore lah.
Based out of Singapore and Tokyo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Tokyo.
Yeah. So I got the job, and I didn't realize what I was in for. So this was the beginning of my exposure to aviation.
I see.
What the job entailed was writing about, not specifically airlines. At that time, I was doing shipping, but how aircraft and ships, vessels, are being financed by companies. Right? So I didn't know that at all until I joined, and they said, well, what you have to do is basically talk to a lot of bankers, financiers, and ask them, how are these financing structured for an aircraft, for a ship, for example, right? So that's how I got into it. So I spent the first 6 months just grappling around, and there's a lot of jargon and a lot of things, but thankfully I got to know some French bankers in Singapore who took me under their wings, and we became friends, and I'm still in contact with them today. And that's how I got into aviation. Initially, it wasn't just aviation, it was aircraft financing. So aircraft financing is very different from your typical aviation analyst. Aircraft financing means you don't really care about, all whatever goes, all the technical parts of aircraft and all that, but you must understand the process by which airlines buy aircraft.
This is getting interesting. Please continue.
So, you have an asset that's worth, 50 to 100 million easily for a aircraft, right?
Yep.
And how do airlines pay for it, right? Very few people understand this.
Yes.
So there's a lot of, it's very sexy actually, because there's a lot of cross-border tax leases involved, right? Incentives and very, very creative accounting. Right? And you can have an aircraft that's registered in, say, the Cayman Islands or in Labuan, because to take advantage of the favorable tax regimes. Yeah. So that's how I got it. So I spent 6 months. Eventually, I spent 3 years plus there, doing nothing but writing about how aircraft are being financed, and that's how I got into speaking engagements as well. Because part of that job also, that they had conferences every year. Conferences where bankers would come and then talking about aircraft financing, airline economics and all that stuff. So I got involved with that. So deepened my interest and my understanding of the industry as well. So
I
that's
see.
when you get a chance to meet, here's someone from Boeing, here's somebody from Airbus.
I see.
Yeah. And these are the manufacturers, these are the component makers. And then I started to understand, it's not just aircraft and passengers, right?
Correct.
It's a whole, it's a huge ecosystem.
Yes, yes. Maybe you can take us through a journey. Let's just say, because there's these terms of aircraft leasing, and then you have companies that doesn't even have a brand name. It's not front facing to a customer, but they actually own 75% of the aircraft for a particular airline. You know, that kind of thing. Right. So maybe can you take us through? Let's walk through. Let's just say SIA. Or maybe you can give me another airline that is a better example when they practice aircraft leasing, someone like AirAsia. So AirAsia wants 100 aircraft. They have all the routes set up or whatsoever. Take us through what are the steps that AirAsia needs to, from the word get go, in the sense that I have a plan for 100 aircraft for 5 years. I'm going to the Farnborough Air Show. I'm gonna announce this big order with Airbus. But what are the things that go on behind the scenes? Securing of financing, securing of the contract, securing of the leasing, and all that kind of thing. Maybe take us through that journey.
Okay, very good that you mentioned Singapore Airlines. Singapore Airlines is actually one of the very few airlines in the world that owns their own aircraft. So they previously don't do a lot of leasing because they can well afford to buy those aircraft.
Okay.
They're very cash rich.
Okay.
And then they manage their portfolio very well. So they had, until today, I think because of the crisis now, I think things are slightly changing. But previously, they were one of the very few airlines that actually own aircraft.
Wow.
So when you own aircraft, the advantage is you control the cost. You have a more leverage when you're buying the aircraft. Right?
Okay.
You can squeeze the manufacturer, especially with a name like SIA. So they typically they're the benchmark in the industry. So
I see.
They get the best prices whenever they buy aircraft.
Wow.
It is not an exaggeration to say that this is one of the best, perhaps even the best carrier in the world, even today, right? By virtue of them, of their reputational brand.
I see.
An airline like AirAsia, which is a low-cost carrier, and like many other airlines in the world, they would need to lease aircraft because aircraft are very expensive assets, right? And so they will have to go to a leasing company.
Okay.
And so and say, look, this is my plan. Within the next few years, I'm going to fly to all these destinations, these routes that I'm looking at, and this is my expansion plan. This is what I'm going to do, and I think I need this particular aircraft type, right? And so I've been successful enough to be able to speak to Airbus, for example, because AirAsia only uses Airbus aircraft.
That's right.
So they have a special relationship, and Airbus provides them with a very lucrative deal in terms of pricing because they buy in bulk.
Yep.
Right? They buy whenever. I mean, it helps in this industry when if you go to Boeing and you say, I want to buy 200, they're your best friend, right? But at the same time, also they say, okay, look, we'll give you special incentives, special discounts. So for the first 10 or 20, you get it at a price that very, very, very.
I see.
Very, very, very good price.
Usually, how much is it off the list price? Because when you Google, right, A320 is roughly about 100 million US, right? So I know some of this may be confidential data, but roughly, do they get like 20% or 30%?
More than that.
Wow, half?
Again, it depends on how much order that you put into place.
What is the most steepest discount you've ever seen?
There's a company, there's an airline, Delta in the US, right?
Okay.
So Delta a couple of years ago decided to buy the A220.
Okay.
Which
Bombardier.
Which Bombardier, but then it was assumed by Airbus, right?
Yeah.
And at that time, this particular aircraft was competing with the Embraer.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so Delta said, okay, we'll go for this particular aircraft. And then the market though was the list price was something, I think about 35, close to 40 or something. Right?
For
so
40.
So they probably got about. There was talk, and then nobody can verify this.
Yeah.
There was talk that they had it for just over 20.
Wow.
So, and because they bought, I can't remember exactly how many, but they bought quite a bit.
Quite a substantial amount.
Yeah. And then this was, to be fair, this is an excellent aircraft. It still is.
Yeah.
Now, especially now that it's under Airbus, and it is able to do a lot of things economically.
I see.
In the marketplace, and yeah, I think we probably will see more of it post-COVID, because now not many people are interested in wide body aircraft, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I know you may not have the numbers exactly, but of all the planes in the world, how many percent do you think are actually leased? 50%, 60%?
No, more than that.
More than that? Wow.
More than that, yeah. More than 70%.
70%. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at airlines in Southeast Asia, for example, since we're in Asia, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Southeast Asia. Garuda,
Yeah.
which is having a problem now.
Yeah.
I mean, Garuda is pretty over 95% of the aircraft are
Leased.
Yeah.
What
And
is the interest rate like for a lease aircraft? The
right
investor
now,
question coming.
Now I think that the numbers have just gone haywire, right?
Okay.
Because over the past 1.5 years, no one's paying.
Whoosh.
Yeah, that's the reality of it, because there's no money coming in, so airlines don't have the revenue, so they can't afford to pay your monthly rentals. But typically, if return on investment, if you're an investor in a leasing company, so leasing companies provide far better returns than an airline. So yeah, I mean, people rush to buy airline stocks, but the best stocks are actually leasing company stocks. So they would, in the good years, they would 13-14%.
Wow.
Yeah, but now they're in very bad. Everything is torn asunder now.
Yeah.
Speaking of leasing companies, what do you think of AirCap? Because I know AirCap is one of the biggest. So maybe you can just shed some light about the leasing industry.
AirCap is one of the largest. I mean, they use, it's got exposure around the world with all the major airlines. Recently, I think you would have read of the merger with GE, right? And that's also going to be interesting, because people now are struggling to understand and to visualize what kind of marketplace we will be in post-COVID.
Yeah.
So that is no. I mean, if somebody can tell you exactly what it's going to look like,
crystal ball. I don't think anyone has a crystal ball, right?
No. Yeah. So what companies and airlines and leasing companies are doing right now is pretty much trying to consolidate and trying to prepare themselves for what emerges after COVID, right? Because things will be very different. Airlines will have less money. The appetite for travel perhaps will be curbed as well for the time being, until you get rid of COVID. I think there will be a lot of uncertainty, right? So Singapore is probably one of good example. They said they will live with this. They're calling it an endemic now, right? So you got to live with it, and they're slowly opening up. So I think that's what is going to happen for the rest of the region as well. I mean, it's not going to go away anytime soon, right? So you just have to learn to live with it. And unfortunately, some airlines will fall because they can't continue bleeding at this rate, right? So the smaller ones, I think in Malaysia, I'm not sure if we will still have 3 airlines in the future. You got Malaysia Airlines, Berhad, MAS, right?
Yes.
And the flag carrier, you have AirAsia, and then you've got Malindo, which is owned by the Indonesians, by Lion Air. Right? There's a lot of overcapacity in Malaysia.
Okay.
AirAsia is, I like AirAsia personally, and I've flown on them many times. One, because I think it's a fantastic airline. I mean, whether you love or loathe Tony Fernandez, I think he's done incredible things for Malaysia.
Yeah.
So I mean, let's call a spade a spade. So he's been fabulous in terms of raising Malaysia's reputation as a place for travel.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, if you look at the data from Malaysia airports, right, you see AirAsia, in fact, is the main airline that bringing all the tourists into Malaysia.
Exactly.
Not the flag carrier.
Correct.
Yeah. But now they're in trouble, and I mean, the share price is still under 1 ringgit for AirAsia, and for AirAsia X, it's even worse.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it can be like that for much longer. I don't know what the end game that management is looking at for AirAsia X. It's very difficult to see. I just don't see much room for maneuver for that company.
The economics, I recall your interview with Bloomberg, I think it's about 7 months ago, and you mentioned you made a call in which there is not much economics left for a long haul, low cost carrier. Maybe to help the audience understand this a little bit more, can you explain why is that so? In a sense, so long haul, for the context of the audience, long haul, low cost is someone like AX, where they fly, I would say, more than 6 hours on a route, one route. Is that correct? Is my definition?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. And usually the turnaround time would be about 2 hours for a flight for something like that.
Yeah.
What would be the economics of that in the future?
There's no economics for that, unless you're prepared to lose money.
Tax revenues, I guess.
No, I think what AirAsia for AirAsia X, so your viewers understand, the reason that he had that was that it was part of this plan to have a feeder system. You have the main AirAsia flying into KLIA 2, and then you have AirAsia X taking them to Japan, to China, to Australia, and all that, right? So it acts as a feeder service, and it helps the company to grow and also to generate some money in between, right? But that is not an easy task to do, because by definition, low cost long haul requires a lot of capital, right? When you're flying, I mean, the money that is being made today by most airlines, especially low cost airlines, are being made within 3 to 4 hours. So short haul flights, right? So quick turnaround, the cost is cheaper, and you don't need your crew to be sleeping in hotels overnight or for 2 nights or whatever, right? And then so that's where you're making the bulk of your profit, like Ryanair, like Southwest, like EasyJet, right? Even Lion Air in Indonesia, right? That did well for that, and AirAsia too. But when you start to go beyond 5-6 hours, then there are regulations to say that you need to have an extra set of crew, for example, set of pilots.
Night stops,
and then you incur costs because your fuel is also there, right? The cost of fuel.
Correct.
And then when you fly, let's say, to Europe, you need to have your crew rest for several days before they can fly back. And then all this, airline industry by definition is a very, very highly capitalized industry, right? And the margins are very thin. So when you go, you have to pack your aircraft with as many passengers you can, especially if you're a low cost long haul, right? And then you are exposed to the vagaries of regulators in Europe, regulators in other places, by the weather, and so many other factors. So there are many variables in the airline business that can ruin your plan, or ruin your company, ruin your life. There have been a lot more. That's why Richard Branson, I think, who said that in order to be a millionaire, you start by being a billionaire.
Correct.
So that has never been true in this business. But then again, I think there's no shortage of rich people who are bitten by the travel bug, by the aviation industry, and they want to try.
I see.
Right.
Yeah.
So
just curious. Before your years looking at airlines, knowing the kind of capital intensity plus the amount of stakeholders that are, right? I mean, you need to consider things like landing rights, i.e. governments. You've got a bunch of staff, and in this part of the world, unions are not so big, but in places like Europe and the US, unions are a lot bigger. Like, walk me through, why is it that rich people still want to try things out? In your own, what's your theory? I guess.
Well, it's just one word: ego.
Oh.
I mean, I've met personally quite a few interesting rich people in my career, right? And in India, for example, you had Kingfisher, right? Vijay Mallya, quite a character himself.
that was a big one. That was a big mess up. Yeah.
And now he's in London, and the airline is gone, right? Yeah. And then you have another one now, or previously, Jet Airways in India, right?
Yes.
And whose owner was also a very charismatic billionaire. And then it went, it shut down, and now they're trying to revive it under different ownership by this another very rich Indian based in Dubai. So let's see how it goes. But there's no shortage of people with a lot of money who wants to dabble in the industry. But there are pockets where you can go into.
I see.
Right? Like in Southeast Asia, for example, there's overcapacity, but there's also areas, if you're smart enough, you can. And this is where we advise people about we do the analytics,
the route analytics,
the route analysis and all the strategic views of how you can possibly penetrate certain sectors, for example, right? Within, but again, it's a lot of these are government to government, because airlines, you need governments to open up the routes. So that's also difficult for private carriers sometimes, because the advantage is always on the flag carriers, because they are government.
So would it be fair for me to say that you think that in terms of economics wise, long haul should in a way be a game more for full-fledged carriers that in a way can charge premium prices? Can charge, okay. So there is, in a way, there's still space for guys like Cathay, SIA.
Absolutely,
yeah.
I think people like SIA and Cathay are not going to go away after the pandemic. In fact, I think they have a lot of positives going for them. If you look at what SIA is doing, they're in trouble, obviously, in terms of the cash burn, which is over 100 million you seeing every month, I think. Similarly for Cathay also. But these are airlines that have been really well established. And what's important, in my opinion also, these are airlines with very, very good management people. And that's, in my view, the key thing for any airline, people, and people who are running it. It doesn't matter, you have a lot of money, if you don't have the right people with the right aptitude to run and manage the airline and understand the business, and who are quick-witted and ready to jump up at 3 a.m. in the morning, for example, because this is a very unpredictable industry, right? Then you have problems. You will have problems. So it's not an industry for the faint-hearted.
Yeah.
So Tony is wonderful because he continues to be a disruptor. And I think we should take pride in the fact that he's Malaysian. So we have produced a world-class aviation entrepreneur, right, in that sense. just like Branson, just like all the other Western aviation business people. But not everybody will have that kind of grit and energy and stamina and humor. I mean, you need a lot of humor in the aviation business
To get
right?
by, right? To
To get by, and to appeal to your customers as well. Especially, there are more young people who are flying these days, right? And the young people are not interested in who you are. They don't care as long as the price is cheap. They'll fly, right? So it doesn't matter to them. And he appeals. Tony does appeal to the younger people, and he has a great sense of communication skills, which helped AirAsia. But having said that, I am concerned about AirAsia where it could go, because unless they are able to raise huge amounts of money to really overcome all the problems that they have had for the last 1.5 years, then it's going to be very challenging for them under the new environment post-COVID. And so,
Right.
again, you guys talked about the rights issue that is coming up with earlier on, and that is something I think that is welcome news, but it also shows that the extent of the situation that he's facing, that the airline is facing right now, is very, very difficult. They don't have, they can't expect Khazanah to pump in 3.6 billion like what Khazanah did for Malaysia Airlines, right? But they have to use their wits and their skills in maneuvering that airline back to profitability. So that will probably be the biggest challenge for people like you, MJ, who have shares in AirAsia, right?
Yeah.
And then you are thinking, well, when can it, at what stage do you say, okay, I've had enough of this, and then I want to exit or whatever, right? But I mean, this is my point: is the airline industry is one of the most brilliant industries in the world, right? But it doesn't equate to profitability all the time. For
Right.
the longest time, the airline industry has been losing money, in fact, right? And so when I was at Standard & Poor's, I covered airlines and airline equities and all that stuff. And when people ask me, I always said, if you can, just avoid putting money in airlines, right? and even the greatest investor of all time, Warren Buffett, he's had enough of airlines, and he's never going to get. But and if you had to put money, then I say put money in leasing companies, right? Listed leasing companies, because they are the ones that. But now everything has changed.
Yeah.
You guys know that nothing is the same as what it was before, right?
Yes.
So this virus has completely transformed the entire landscape.
Yeah. I remember you were mentioning about this German leasing company and the debacle about the A380, and then shed a bit of light, for those who didn't read about this particular debacle, where there was a big group of investors in Germany, and they financed the A380, and I don't know who these aircrafts were leased to. Maybe you can shed some light and why the economics didn't work out actually.
Yeah, it all started in 1997 when the A380 was 2007. Sorry, 2007. Yeah, it was. Yeah, when the A380 was launched, right? And SIA was a launch customer for the A380.
Yeah.
So they bought 19 A380s. So they were the launch customer. Again, they had very, very good prices when they bought them.
Mm-hmm.
But people may not know that the first 5 or 6 aircraft that SIA took, the A380s, they didn't buy them. They leased them because SIA has a fantastic treasury team and risk management team. And they decided, okay, we'll be the launch customer because we're going to get a good aircraft. It is a good aircraft, right? I've flown on it many times, and then SIA said, okay, but just to mitigate our risk, that we'll have the first 6 leased to us, and so that we can see how the economics go, and then, we'll take it from there, right?
Mm.
And so they leased it from German investors, basically. There's a German word for it, which I'm not going to try to
pronounce it.
Yeah, but essentially what it was like German investors bought the aircraft and then leased it to Singapore Airlines, to SIA. But at the same time, what the German investors did also, they sold part of that portfolio to retail investors, right? Or even,
okay.
I think there was a time at one point, I think Arnold Schwarzenegger and maybe Tom Cruise or a few of the Hollywood celebrities were part owners of this aircraft.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So you can put, I don't know, a few million or whatever, right?
Mm-mm-mm.
And then because you are getting rental from SIA, what could go wrong, right?
Yes,
That's the best airline in the world. So you're guaranteed of returns every month, right? For maybe a number of years or something like that, right? So that's what happened. But the A380 is a peculiar aircraft because some people say it's ahead of its time. Some people said it was, they could have come earlier and all that. But I've always been of the view that, there was not a real need for that sort of aircraft because it's a huge, double-decker aircraft, massive plane, right? So it was very expensive to run. And when you have an aircraft with 4 engines, it's going to cost you a lot more. So, for example, when you're flying from Singapore, Changi, or KLIA to London, just an example, right? Because this was told to me by pilots who fly it, and I have an ex-college mate who was an A380 pilot, right? And each time when you fly an A380 from either Singapore or Malaysia, you're talking about loading up jet fuel worth about over 200,000 US.
Wow.
Just for that sector, from Singapore or KL to London.
London, yeah.
Right. So imagine over 200, depending on how much jet fuel costs, right?
Yeah.
At that particular point in time. So in order to just justify or to break even on that particular sector for that flight, for example, KL to London Heathrow, you have to first make sure that you can cover the fuel costs.
Correct.
Right? And then you can talk about making money. So that's the reason hardly any airline has made money from this aircraft.
But it's surprising though. I mean, prior to the creation of the A380, the 747 seen so much success. And it was could carry about 400 something passengers. Huge success.
Even 500, yeah.
Yeah, 500 if on a stretch version, right? And yet the A380 fell wayside. Was it because of, I think, changing trends? I think you mentioned this before, from a hub and spoke model towards a more direct route, and that's why
point, yeah.
Yeah, point to point. And the other thing was that is it because as well of 4 engines, because we see Airbus retiring the A340, that didn't work. The A330 sold much better. The A350 is going to sell even better. And you mentioned many times it's going to be a cash cow. So if we pivot towards that, right, my question would be this: will wide body models be consolidated into just a few that are money making for the airlines, and then the rest will just go wayside? Like this A340s, the 767s. What are your thoughts on that, actually?
There's certainly an argument veering on that, right? I can see, John, that you do have a personal interest in it. Not many people would understand the economics of that, but you are right in the sense that post-COVID, for example, people are already starting to talk about decreasing the number of wide-body aircraft, meaning 777, 787 Dreamliners, A350, 330s, and all that, right? In favor of the A320s, for example, or the 737 Maxes and all that. Is there any truth to that? I think so, because I think international long haul travel will be the last one to fly, right? So that in when you're saying that, I think there, we understand people like SIA and Cathay who are very much dependent on intercontinental, and even for SIA ultra long haul flights.
Correct. Like the Singapore New Jersey route.
Yeah. And so they will struggle, right? They will suffer because they are dependent on all these long haul flights. So the first one that will continue and will be more aggressive will be the domestic flights, right? So you have flights within China, and this is where having a big country is very important. Like Indonesia, right? They have many islands in their country. It's an archipelago, unlike Singapore, which is a little red dot. So they don't have a market of their own, right? A domestic market. But that said, I think Singapore has always treated the whole ASEAN, or in fact the whole Asia Pacific, as its own backyard. It's its own domestic playing phase. And because they have the fleet, they have very new aircraft, they have some of the best new aircraft that's in their fleet. And so that, we'll have to see how that play out. So it's very difficult now, especially when borders are still being shut.
Yeah. And
the requirements for travel passes, vaccination, and so on. But yes, the future will probably be for aircraft like the Airbus A321 XLR.
Yeah, because I mean, if you can fly, if they can pack you like sardines and fly you Kuala Lumpur, London on the A321, I'm pretty sure they will do that. I'm very sure the airlines will do that.
They will. I mean, somebody like Michael O'Leary at Ryanair have all these really interesting ideas. I mean, he's the person who at one point, I mean, whether it was said in humor, I don't know. He would charge $1 or $5 for someone to use the loo, right? or for standing in an aircraft, So, but those are the kind of things. But I don't think we are at the stage where we can have a narrow body aircraft that can fly
that kind of distance.
That kind of distance right now. But with the XLR, the A321, I think this is truly, I mean, it's a cliche, but it's a game changer.
Yeah, it is. Right? It is. And 7,000, 4,000 nautical miles, right? 7,000 is crazy.
Literally from KL to Perth, easy.
Yeah.
Right?
Easy.
And from KL to Tokyo.
Yeah.
Right. And on the Middle East.
Yes.
So again, for if you're an airline owner and you're looking at the future and you're saying, I mean, this is the cost I'm going to pay. Plus, you need to work out and do the calculations. How many people you think are likely to want to fly post-COVID, right, to a certain destination? But that aircraft would be more suitable, I think, especially given the problems that the 737 MAX is facing right now.
Yeah.
So the Airbus certainly has the edge now. And I'm happy for them because they've worked very hard. They've been very, very canny about how they maneuver the marketplace and how they build the customer base, for example. Right. So if you look at low-cost carriers in Southeast Asia, for example, or even beyond Southeast Asia, most of them are using A320s, right? which is the workhorse of low-cost carriers. Yeah.
MJ, you have any questions, MJ?
Yes, actually, I want to ask you a little bit slight divergence to the Boeing Airbus duopoly.
Yeah.
I think the first question that I want to know is also why is it that for the longest time that there has been this duopoly and that there doesn't seem to be the third or fourth player? And the second one is I've not updated myself, but I think a couple of years back I was reading up saying that the Chinese want to be that third player. And to my knowledge now, that has not become a reality yet. So maybe explain to myself and those listening, why is it that there's a duopoly? And why is it that it's so difficult for a third one to break through into that duopoly? And Are the Chinese close to it? That's my question.
The comjets of this world.
Yeah, okay. First of all, an aircraft is a very, very complicated machine, right? There are thousands of kilometers of cables in the 777, for example. Right? I have one of my favorite times when I go to places like Seattle and Toulouse and then I consider that being fortunate in being this industry, you get it, to visit all these factories and look at how difficult it is to put an aircraft together because there's so many pieces and components to get together. So it requires a lot of research, a lot of money, a lot of intellect that goes into it, right? So Boeing is the oldest one. It's over 100 years, and they're very proud of it, as they should be. And they have gone from building, planes that can land on the sea, or to building supersonic aircraft, to building military aircraft, and so on. So it's a fabulous, fabulous company. And therefore, for the longest time, until 1970, when Airbus came into the picture, so they had the monopoly, right? And they were the biggest supplier of aircraft to all the airlines in the world at that time. And also because they had the know-how, they had the, if you like, the first mover advantage. So anybody with the first mover advantage, will gain, right, from that. Things started to change when, actually before Airbus, Embraer was in the picture. So Embraer is actually older than Airbus by about a year, I think. Right? So Embraer came into the picture in 1969. They started by producing crop dusters in Brazil, and then they gradually built into smaller aircraft, and then it gradually developed. But at the same time, the Europeans, if you go back, and this is where my European studies come into play, and you look at the 60s and 70s, where the Europeans were very much trying to get together as a group, right? So the EEC at that time was called, right? Economic grouping, the alliance that they had. So they wanted something to show for it. So Airbus was born in 70. The A300 was there, and then it helped that they were the four biggest shareholders in Airbus, as you know. John is France, Germany, the UK, and Spain, right?
Yes.
And so this is why they have had the advantage of being backed by very strong economies, right? Yes. Germany, France, UK. So they've used that opportunity, and it's good for all of us today, because otherwise it would just be a monopoly by Boeing. Right?
Yeah.
So it's gradually over the last 40, 50 years become a duopoly. And now Airbus is actually ahead of Boeing.
Yes.
Because of the problems that were raised by the 737. And now recently, I hope not, it's not going to endanger Boeing, but the problems that they are seeing with the 787.
Yes.
But that has pushed back Boeing's
dominance.
Dominance by a fair bit, but also I would like to pay tribute to Airbus management also, because they have been very, very acutely aware of what they needed to do, and I think in many ways they were able to, and they broke a lot of barriers in Southeast Asia, for example.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So there was an Airbus chief salesman who would fly. John Leahy, yeah, who I know very well, and who I have had the pleasure of having various debates together. And he would fly. He wouldn't think twice about flying from Paris to Jakarta to meet with the owner of Lion Air, for example. Right? And this is a very good example, because our Lion Air was previously a Boeing customer. Right?
Yes. Very big Boeing customer.
Very big, huge Boeing customer. and then the Airbus came into the picture, and he flew up and down, sometimes just over a day.
Wow.
Right? Crazy, yeah, I know. But he was that kind of person, very driven. He's a real legend. So he would, be very persuasive. And then, he managed to get Lion to buy, I think, 234 orders of Airbus aircraft, right? And he did the same for Vietjet as well.
Yeah. Yes.
And similarly with other airlines in the world. So and ironically, he's American.
Yeah, he's actually the best. MJ, I don't know whether you know, the best aircraft salesman for a European company is American.
An American guy.
His name is John Lee. He's
you cannot write this sort of story, you know.
yeah, exactly.
So he was quite a. He has his own personality. He was godlike in that company, and for a good reason as well.
Yes.
Because he single-handedly beat Boeing. I mean, I would go so far to say that.
Yeah.
And and now I think when we talk about duopoly, yes, it is a duopoly. But I would say the Chinese are not very far behind. We will come to a time maybe after this decade, for example, where the Chinese will be a force. And they're maybe not as big yet because they are still going through the learning curve, right?
Yeah.
And in this business, the learning curve is very steep.
Yes.
But the Chinese have the knowledge, they have the know-how, they have the people to make it happen, right? So I would say, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And I see Avic and Comac and their state-owned companies are very aggressive in pushing this up, but they are still dependent on parts that are supplied by Americans and Europeans to put together their so-called national aircraft, right?
Yeah. I mean, even looking at the 787, I would say while it's a Seattle-made aircraft, fuselage from Kawasaki, avionics from Honeywell. So virtually, if you look at aircraft manufacturers today, they're more assemblers rather than,
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing for anything today. I mean, look at our phone, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
All the various parts in the phone came from everywhere, from the minerals that go into it and all the parts and everything. So that's the world we live in today. I mean, my cameras, again, coming back to my hobby, I mean, the cameras that I have different cameras, right, for different uses. They come from different, I mean, it may be a Leica, for example, or it may be a Fuji or Nikon or Canon, but the Canon cameras are made in China or in Thailand, right? So what can you say? This is the world we live in. And so in future you will have, and it's already happening, so the Dreamliners, parts of it are made in Japan or some parts from Italy, I think. And that's how we will go forward. So nothing will be produced primarily by the country that is making it, right? And that's the globalization that we know today. So again, I think the Chinese would have perfected making an aircraft within the next 15 to 20 years. They've built an aircraft carrier already. They've sent people, they've sent machines to Mars. Don't underestimate the Chinese, and I like to see that happening because I'm happy and proud as an Asian to see another Asian country at the forefront of this. So the Chinese are in fact carrying Asian hopes, right? So whereas in the past, it's Western dominated, Europeans and Americans, and now you have the Chinese, and this is also partly why we're having all this trade confrontations, which is a sad thing because it doesn't benefit anyone.
Yeah. MJ had a question actually.
It's somewhat linked. So because of the sheer expanse of the number of parts, right, that it cannot be assembled in one country. And so I'm likening what we're discussing here a bit to the semiconductor industry, because China wants basically every single part to be manufactured in China. So they want self-reliance, right? That's the word that they use. Do you think it is realistic for China, or even possible for China, to do every single parts within the country. They have a billion and a half people. Do you think that's possible? And do you think that's, even if it was possible, do you think that it's reasonable?
I think it's certainly possible for the Chinese to do anything they set their hearts and mind to do, because the Chinese have been civilized well before anyone else. It's a 5,000-year-old civilization. Let's not forget that. And so they are very clever and they're very astute. But for them to come up to a stage where they can do everything on their own, maybe they're not there yet. But I certainly think they are capable of doing that. Let's wait another, as I said, give them another 10, 20, 2 decades, and I think they will be there because they can do everything. They have been producing a lot of stuff. I mean, what is there that China cannot produce today? Right? Name me one product that they can't produce. I mean, they can do anything within the confines of the mainland, for example, right? Yes, they would need all this natural resources that they would have to go to Africa, they would go to distant lands to procure them, but they have the know-how, they have the capability to put it together. They have some of the smartest people trained in the West that have just come back to China, right? And who are running all these high-end technological companies, right? And look at Alibaba, look at TikTok, look at all these things. I mean, who would have guessed that this was all Chinese, right?
Yeah.
So, it's something to celebrate, I think, and not to knock, not to be envious of. I think, they've come very far in a very short period of time, right?
Yeah.
Since opening up in 1979 until today, it's a very short time, and look how much they've achieved. So, airline industry, for them to achieve something great is well within their capability, even maybe to surpass other existing Western carriers, or even technologically speaking. Plus, they have so much money.
Yeah.
They have deep pockets that they can virtually, finance this through. They can make mistakes, and then they will just, just go on and achieve that. So I think that's a good thing, and especially for Asians, right? Then you have a place on the table of international aviation to say, well, look, here's an Asian representative. So that could from a duopoly, it can expand to having China, like the UN. You have China there, and the rest are all the Western countries.
Western guys. Shukor, I'm going to pivot a little bit into the supply chain in a way of aircraft. So as MJ and myself, we mentioned, and you've shared very well, that it is a very capital intensive industry. No one person can develop the entire aircraft out of scratch. I think it's the same thing for the semiconductor industry. We see the divergence today into niche players. So take us a little bit into, let's just say, someone like Spirit Aerospace, who does parts, fuselage. I don't know whether they do full frame fuselage, but I know they do parts of wings and all that. Versus a guy who is like a Safran or a Rolls-Royce, who actually commands a better margin in your experience, and who commands better financing?
Well, in the past it would be Rolls-Royce, because you can't fly an aircraft without engines, right?
Yeah.
And many of the wide body aircraft are powered by Rolls engines.
Yes.
Right?
The Trent 1000s, the Trent 900s.
So the 380s and the 777s and so on. So and this is a very, very, very influential company, right? But they have come under a lot of strain in recent times. You've seen that reflected in their share price, which has taken a huge tumble recently, not just from the economics of it, but there were many issues that were associated with bribery and all that stuff, right?
Yes.
Which had happened some time ago. But I still think it's influential company that has a big place in the ecosystem, right? And you have, if you've been fortunate enough to visit their plant at Seletar, they have a huge
in Seletar, Singapore. Okay.
yeah, they have a plant in Singapore where they put together all these huge turbines and engines, and you can see the amount of know-how and knowledge and the it's just the energy that goes, and I'm saying this in not just a rhetorical way, but it is going to continue to be making money because the engines, and they continue to develop new technology as well, right? And one of the key things about aviation right now, the key word is sustainability, right? And the Rolls-Royce is among one few companies that are at the forefront of it because they are developing new engines, new technology where you can allow, where in future, you have a non-fossil fuel being loaded into an aircraft, right? Like, Airbus is looking at hydrogen planes, for example, right? And you've used it. They even talk about using electric aircraft in the future. Right?
we cannot rule that out, man.
No,
Definitely something on the cards, on the table.
Yeah. So I think that's some of the things that all these companies, I think, and that's the beauty about the aviation industry. It never stopped inventing or innovating. Right? So, and that's what I, over the past 25 years being in the industry, you keep learning. And it's amazing. I mean, this industry, I'm happy to say, and proud to say that some of the most intelligent and smartest and creative people are in this business, right? In the aviation industry, because every 6 months you see something new, and they adapt, and they create new things, and they make it safer, for us to fly, right? So it is the safest mode of transportation.
Great. Now I'm gonna pivot a little bit into airlines, and we won't hold it against you. Can you name us your favorite airlines? So I don't know whether it will make sense to our audience in terms of investing ranking as well. Which airlines do?
No, again, I mean, I'm the last one. Ever since, when I worked for Standard & Poor's, I worked for them for nearly 15 years, actually.
Okay.
And when I was working for them, and everyone had to declare, right? If you have any holdings, if you bought any shares, I'm one of the few people who, I don't like buying and selling shares. I was never an investor of that sort, and especially when you're covering airlines, you're not supposed. It would be good if you stay off from having any interest in any particular airlines in terms of having shareholdings.
Yeah.
But I think in Asia, I still think that obviously Singapore Airlines is without a doubt the strongest.
Okay.
In the business by virtue of having Temasek. I mean, I don't know if you read the news that yesterday Temasek announced that they made, I don't know how many billions or whatever.
Oh no, I haven't read it.
Of their portfolio. So
look,
this is an airline that's backed by the only AAA country in this part of the world, right? Or anywhere for that matter. So that again gives you lends a lot of comfort to any would-be investor, right? So things may not look very good now, but I think if you can tahan, if your threshold is high, and then you can just keep it, and I don't think you can go very wrong.
What about AirAsia? I'm pretty sure MJ is dying to ask you about AirAsia.
Again, I think I mentioned it in passing earlier. I think I'm concerned about that airline and their ability to come out of this in one piece.
Understand.
Right? It is, but it would be sad if that were to happen, because I have a high regard for Tony and Dane and the people who are managing AirAsia. I think it's a lot that Malaysians have to be proud of, having AirAsia. Came out from nothing. And now when you watch Premier League games, you see AirAsia, you can't help but feel a bit proud about it, right?
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
But again, this crisis has really knocked them off the pedestal, right? As it has with every single airline.
Yeah.
And unless they are able to really raise a substantial amount of money and just reignite or reset again, again, that it's easier said than done, right? Then I think it'd be tough. But one other airline, a very low-profile airline that I've always liked from the beginning is Cebu Pacific.
Oh, interesting.
In the Philippines, yeah.
Are they listed? Let me check.
Yes, they are. They are listed. It's owned by the Philippine conglomerate called JG Summit.
Mm-hmm. What makes them so good, Shukor?
It is well run, exceptionally well run.
I see.
It's run by a guy called Lance Go Kongwei, who is also part of the JG Summit conglomerate, and it's one of the better run companies in Asia. In fact.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so Cebu Pacific won because they have this huge Filipino diaspora.
I see.
Right? So they fly to the Middle East, they fly everywhere, where there are a lot of Filipino workers in many parts of the world, right? And so they benefit from that. And also they are, again, I come back to management skills. So this is one of the few airlines that really have a very good management. It's run very tight.
Would you consider the Middle Eastern guys like Tim Clark of Etihad? Or I mean, how would you? I don't know whether it will be politically inept for you to answer all that, but
no, I'm quite happy. I think I've never shied away from answering difficult questions. I think
so. Cebu is one. SIA is one.
SIA is one. Well, they're not listed, the Gulf carriers. Right?
Yeah, the Gulf carriers are not listed. But in terms of management, the guys running them, do you
Qatar.
have Qatar?
Yeah.
I don't know who is the CEO. I know Tim Clark, of Emirates, but
yeah. But the CEO of Qatar is a very how shall I describe? He's a
Akbar Al-Bakr.
Yes. He's a huge influence in the marketplace. He understands the business very well.
Great.
He is, I think he's one of the key players in the industry.
I see.
Yeah. So
what
will be.
Yeah. What about the European guys? The Ryanair.
Yeah, definitely. Ryan and EasyJet are still going to be there because low cost is a huge part of the market there. But then you will have all the flag carriers like BA and KLM and Air France and Lufthansa. They are laggards, obviously, right? By virtue. Again, as you mentioned earlier in this conversation, there are unions there.
Correct.
That can disrupt the way businesses are done very easily. But that's part of their system in Europe, right? So for better or for worse, I think that's something that they have to navigate through. But most of the low-cost carriers in Europe, they are going to do well because there is enough space for them to. And the people that traditionally have been very attracted to flying EasyJet and Ryanair. In the US, they're doing exceptionally well.
Yeah.
Exceptionally well because the US market have, by definition, been always. Look, people in the US fly like they take taxis, right?
That's right. That's right.
So I think you can nibble into some of the stocks there. And again, I am not advocating for.
No, don't worry. We wouldn't hold you accountable for buy or sell call.
Again, I would like to remind you of what Warren Buffett has done. So he has completely
exited.
So so that he's a legend. So I would follow him.
Yeah. MJ, any questions before I wrap up?
Well, as always with our guests, there are plenty of questions, but I know that there's a time limit. We cannot hold you for too long. So John, go ahead.
Okay. Just one last question. So 3 days ago, this company in the US called SetJet, they announced a very interesting scheme, in my opinion. You pay $499 for a yearly membership, and you get to fly in a private jet they call it private jet at first class prices. So do you think the economics will work? One, and why is it not catching up in countries like Southeast Asia, where there's tons of archipelagos? You know, the only way, in a way, the only way to travel is flying. You know, and yeah, your thoughts?
Well, in fact, I disagree with you. I think that it will catch up here.
Oh, really? Oh, great.
And which is why I think you've seen WCT showing a deep interest in transforming
Subang. Yes. Oh, the big hoo-ha with MHB. Yes.
So that part of the idea, if I understand it correctly from people who are familiar with that bid, is to turn Subang into a city airport, which would allow also for private jets to come. A bit like Seletar in Singapore.
I see.
But KL is fantastic because it's already one of the bigger consumers of private jet flying. I mean, if you go to any state, I mean, Johor, we have several tycoons with their own private aircraft.
Yep.
In Subang, you will see aircraft by the Bajaya Group and a few other corporations that have made. And that's great because Malaysia, if you look at Malaysia East and West, you need to fly. Right?
That's right.
Yeah. And I think that will grow. So I think a concept like what SetJet has come up with. SetJet.
SetJet.
It will pick up, especially in China, right, where there's a huge number of very affluent people. But let's not go that far. I mean, within Malaysia itself, I think there is a market for it.
Great.
And that's why I think that there is a lot of interest in the development of Subang and what it will be for the next.
For the next. Yeah. Okay. To wrap it up, where can people find you? And I even forgot the most important question. Endau Analytics. Why Endau?
Okay. Endau obviously is a name I took from Endau Rompin.
Endau Rompin, yeah.
Which is the national park in Johor and partly in Pahang State. Endau is a place where, as a kid, my family would go for picnics.
I see.
And not really Endau inside, but near Mersing and Kota Tinggi, that area, right?
I see.
That part, yeah. And Endau is actually a palm. It's
I didn't know that. Okay.
It's a palm tree, palm leaf.
I see.
And it's unique only to that part of the world. Actually,
I see. Okay.
And being a Johorian, so I'm proudly patriotic about that. So that's how it came about.
I see.
Yeah.
Great. So where can people find you?
I mean, they can look me up at my website, endauanalytics.com, or my blog, endauanalytics.wordpress.com.
Okay.
Or if they're passing by in Johor Bahru, they can Google me up and we can have Teh Tarik somewhere.
Yeah.
That'd be good. Again, I extend this to you guys,
definitely. As long as the borders open and everyone's vaccinated.
Let's hope for the best. I think we need to give a lot of support to our frontliners.
Yeah.
The people who are doing the most difficult job at this time in the crisis, and they deserve all our support.
Correct.
And all our prayers. So let's hope it ends soon. But stay safe, you guys, and keep it up. I'm glad to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And look forward to speaking to you on perhaps another time.
Yeah, I definitely. MJ, any last words?
No, it's been very pleasurable. The only sad part is that it couldn't be longer. That's
The Japanese one, Mr. Shukor. So I have to cut it short.
Yeah, you're right. My wife is Japanese, so
Oh, she's Japanese. I didn't know that. But thank you so much for being on. I think MJ and I really enjoyed myself. I had so many questions to ask that I didn't even allow MJ to ask as many.
We can think of something. So I'm quite happy. We maybe can try something out differently next time.
That's right. Yeah.
We're going to specifics the next round.
More specifics. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I would like that, MJ. Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you. And we'll see you guys in the next episode of our podcast. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.